you did the one Bollywood thing and you toured all around the country, sounds like, which is amazing. Did you continue doing it after that?
Our purpose is our North Star. So when you have a big enough goal, dream, and legacy, you are likely to heal. So you never focus on the pain, you focus on the goal, dream, and legacy. When you help other people, you're actually helping yourself. So, yes, I have bad emotions like everybody else. So let the emotions come, let the anger come, express them through movement, express them through dance, express them through art, because we're meant to show emotion. But what I'm saying, have focus and purpose, because it goes back to that saying by psychiatrist Jerry Welsh. When you've got a big enough dream, you don't have a crisis. When you're living your dream, you don't have time to be sick. I'm not interested in colour or religion, but in life we all have a purpose, and our purpose is not only to contribute to the planet, but to contribute to each other.
Hi, everybody. This is Dan and Dante. Welcome to another episode of Middle Age Mess, the show for people who still know how to program a VCR. Okay, so today we are talking Pilates, we're talking holistic health, we're talking yoga, we're talking wellness, we're talking Nisha Srivastava. Hi, Nisha.
Hey, Dan. Great to speak to you this evening.
I already love your accent, so it almost doesn't matter what you say. I'm going to have a good time today just listening to you. That's a good way to start, I guess. All right, so I'm assuming you're from England. I was assuming you'd be Indian in your ethnicity, but no.
Well, I am from England and I am an Indian in ethnicity. So my mother was English and my father's Indian, but I was born in Liverpool in the UK. So I have a little bit of a Scouse accent.
Yeah, you got that northern accent going. People in London probably are very biased against you, I would imagine, right?
Just a little.
Right. No, I was actually I was there last year in London. So I love England. It's such a beautiful place. And I have friends who live in Manchester. So we went up there for a little while to the north.
Yes.
It's a little cold. I don't know if you know that. It's a little cold up there.
It is cold. And that's where my Pilates studio is done. It's in Manchester.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to get to, before we get to all that stuff though, I like to know a little bit about you. So tell me a little about like where you were raised, give me some good stories. How do we get to where we are now? Let's hear the whole, in 25 words or less, I would imagine.
Okay, Dan, so I'm definitely a creative and a dreamer archetype. And I'm from the Northwest, as we said, and have been brought up through, a mirage of cultures. So my mum was like a holistic hippie. She was into all alternative therapies, as well as growing our own vegetables. And we used to keep our own hens and ducks and have our own eggs. And my father is an academic, so he is in medicine. He's retired now. So I got a real plethora of information growing up, holistic versus the science. So I got to look at both sides of the coin.
So when you grew up in England, though, was holistic? I mean, you're probably, we're probably similar age-ish.
Yeah.
When you grew up, I guess, in like the 70s, was holistic health a thing that was like accepted in England or not? Not really.
Well, holistic health wasn't a thing then, Dan, but I have to say people had a different quality of life. So what I can remember from my childhood is women didn't have to work. There was less pressure on women. There was less people. So everybody used to grow their own vegetables and we all used to cook from scratch. So we didn't have ultra processed foods as much. There was also less entertainment and less choices. So the shops used to close at 12:30 on a Saturday. Everything was closed on a Sunday. So as a collective and as a whole, as a society, we had no internet, we had no devices. So we were forced to go internal, do more family things, more tribe, more community, and do more homegrown. So, everything was high quality back then.
Well, exactly. What's interesting? I have this argument with people all the time, mostly my kids, because they're, Gen Z, so they know everything that's ever been known in mankind's history. And I say to them, like, when we grew up, the world was much healthier.
Yes.
We lived a much more natural life. The foods that we have today, like you said, ultra processed, hyper processed, didn't really exist. We didn't have the devices, so we talk to each other once in a while. We didn't have gyms really, so we rode bikes. I mean, I think it was a better life back then, you know? I really do. And like, sure, today you have phones and apps and conveniences, and you can go all over the world and find your way around. And you know what? I think it's horrible. You know, I think it was great when you had to struggle a little bit. I think it was great when you had to, like, if you went to England, like I did back in the early 90s, we got a map, piece of paper, and we had to figure the fuck out where we were going and how to get to the train. And it like created neural pathways of learning how to figure things out, you know? And I think that's kind of gone today, right?
It has done, because I used to play out till late, and other people tell me this as well. And you came in when your parents called you in, or when your mother called you in for your tea, and you got your hands dirty in the soil. You were climbing trees. You built up a natural immune system through bacteria. There was hardly any or no plastics. So when my mother used to go shopping, she had a string bag, and I remember her repairing the string bag. And you had to go to the greengrocers to buy your fruit and your vegetables. You had to go to the butcher to buy any meat or animal products. The milkman used to deliver our milk. There was a small corner shop.
You guys had a milkman? You had a milkman?
Yeah.
That's exciting. That's exciting. I mean, in one lifetime, we went from like a milkman to like Instacart on your.
Yes,
you know?
that's right. That's right. So you mentioned the word convenience, Dan. When we have convenience, convenience is great, but it always comes as a cost. And as you said, human beings are designed to handle problems, and we're not handling problems at the moment because we've got more mental health issues than ever before worldwide.
I got to tell you, and we may end up talking about kids. Do you have kids? Do you have children?
No, I don't.
Okay. So my kids are 19 and 21 years old, and they're in college. And I'm sure you deal with children in your practice, or young adults or whatever. And it's shocking to me how kids leave the home, whether it's college or work or whatever, and they are just lost. I mean, absolutely lost. They don't know how to deal with anything, you know? I mean, especially not only with conveniences, but the way parenting has evolved. Like parenting now, the helicopter parents who take care of everything for their kids, like these kids don't know how to fail. And I don't, like when I raise my kids, what I want to do is like, make them super independent. I didn't do anything for them. Like I kicked my daughter out at like 3 years old and said, go next door and play. And she hated me for it at the time. And now in college, thanks me for it. Says, Dad, like I have friends who don't know how to talk to somebody, don't know how to go find something out. And it's terrible, isn't it?
It's really difficult, Dan. And one of the things I say is I try and preach through demonstration, not telling people what to do. So this is what I've learned. If you tell somebody what to do, it doesn't work. But we lead by example. So I always preach through demonstration. And that then sends the ripple effect. And it also influences others then. So they think differently and think, what's that person doing? How could I do something different? But sometimes we do need a nudge and a coach and some accountability and mentorship to help us reach our potential in life.
So, I mean, yoga comes from India. Was he a practitioner when you were young?
He wasn't because India now, especially when I go back now, it's funny, everybody in the West seeks the East and everybody in the East seeks the West. So especially since COVID, so China and India are superpowers, you know, with super billions of money going in, but the rich have become rich and the poor have become poor. And the IT and the amount of apps has meant that, you know, people are getting, you know, diseases such as diabetes, obesity, cardiovascular disease, arthritis in a really bad way, which weren't there before, plus a lot of mental health issues because, you know, it's growing in a way that, you know, doesn't serve the people, nor does it serve the planet.
No, it's terrible. I agree with you on all respects. I mean, the world has become it's an easier place, but not a better place. And we could probably talk about all the different things of how life is more, like you said, more convenient today, but not better. But when you were, so I'm trying to figure out, like, your evolution in doing Pilates and yoga
Yes.
and wellness, like how did that develop? Was that something you did as a child or something came on?
No, it wasn't. Well, I was sent to a very, very academic school, Dan, to be honest. So the way Indian people originally got out of poverty in India was to come over to the UK. So they all came over to the UK and they went two directions. They either went into the rag trade or they went into medicine. So my upbringing was very academic. So I had a lot of development of the left brain, but on a good side to me, Dan. I couldn't learn that way. So I read a stat the other day. I think it's only 6 or 7% of children can learn from the blackboard. So as a result of not listening and not being clever at school, I actually was a daydreamer. So I longed to move and I longed to dance. And once I got the opportunity and I was 16 and my parents got divorced, I went and followed my dream. And that was to go to dance college. Then I went into drama, I went into acting, I went into singing. And, it's just really stemmed from there.
Nisha, you're the best. I love you already. I think you're fantastic.
Thank you.
You always want to be a dancer. Did you achieve that dream? Were you a professional dancer, a professional actor for a while?
I wasn't a professional dancer, but I was worked in cabaret and I worked a lot in films doing extra work. And I had a few small roles and I got the opportunity to work for a very, very famous Indian Bollywood producer called Devanand, who's now passed away. And I played the baddie part in his film when I was in my mid-20s. And that was an amazing opportunity because I got to tour all over South India and, really learn about Bollywood because everything in Bollywood is expressive.
You're doing like Bollywood dances, all like,
and meet so many beautiful people. And then from there, I went into teaching. I had a dance.
Hold on, before let's talk about Bollywood. I don't know. I always see her on like the camera. You don't look that Indian to me. You look very fair skinned and
Yes, well, North Indian people tend to be fairer skinned, and don't forget, my mother was English, so I'm Anglo-Indian, so I'm half. And also in the north of India, in north of England, we lack vitamin D, so I'm probably looking a little bit pale.
You get no sun. You don't have sun for 11 and a half months out of the year.
No, we don't. 11 and a half months, yeah.
And you grew up with the name Nisha Srivastava.
Yes, that's correct.
Well, England's a lot of Indian people in England, so it's not that unusual, right? Even when
It isn't. No, it isn't unusual. At the time when my father came in the 60s, there was a small community. Now it's beautiful to see how multicultural the UK has gone and how, how all the ethnic minorities are contributing to the UK. So it doesn't matter about colour or religion, Dan. I'm not interested in colour or religion, but in life we all have a purpose, and our purpose is not only to contribute to the planet, but to contribute to each other. So in order to make a better world, we have to contribute to society. So providing everybody's contributing and making a better, person out of themselves, there is no separation or segregation.
Well, look, it's an amazing and inspirational message, and I love what you're saying.
Yes.
It makes you feel good, but I also wonder, like, when you were doing Bollywood and maybe you didn't look like everybody in the cast, right?
Well, that's why I got the job. So Devanand had a very, very old, well, she's passed away now, probably, an old Persian actress called Helen. So when he met me, I was reminded of Helen. So it was actually his son I worked for called Sunil Anand. So Sunil put this film together and the pale skin actually looks amazing on the camera.
Well, look, I was a redhead growing up, so I have a deep, abiding faith in pale skin. I mean, I'm all about the pale people. You did the one Bollywood thing, and you toured all around the country. Sounds like, which is amazing. Did you continue doing it after that, or was there some reason?
No, because at the time, Dan, I was only young. I was only in my 20s and I wasn't ready to leave the UK. And I also had a thriving dance school here. And, I love people and I love the community. And, the grass is always greener on the other side. And I wanted to come back and run my dance school. So I ran my dance school and I then got into Pilates. And, I've had opportunities to work all over the world so many times, Dan, but I've always come back to my roots of the Northwest.
Opportunity to work around the world. I mean, being in the north of England, which is, a little more cloistered than say London. I mean, how would people find you and bring you to other places around the world?
Well, you have to put yourself out into the universe. So nobody is going to come and knock on my door and say, let me give you work. So I put myself out there through marketing before social media was popular. Before I visited a country, I used to contact all the Pilates studios, see if they wanted any workshops, see if there was anything I could do to assist them to help them grow economically, help them grow their clients, help them grow financially. And from there, it's the ripple effect, because when you help other people, you're actually helping yourself.
Absolutely. And it sounds like you did Pilates before Pilates was cool too.
Yes, I did. I was the first person, Dan, would you believe, to bring Pilates apparatus to the Northwest over 30 years ago. So in my area, there were two people. There was a physio within 20 miles radius with one Pilates apparatus machine, and there was a couple with a Pilates apparatus machine. It was virtually non-existent. And now it's saturated, which is amazing because all the young ones are coming through now.
Yeah.
Notice.
The first reformer in Northwest England. I mean, that's something you should hang your hat on. You should put that on your tombstone. How did you know?
The first group, I have to correct you on that, Dan. The first group apparatus, so the first group reformer and tarot studio in the North.
How did you know about it before everybody else did?
Well, I remember being at college when you were injured. I went to dance college. We did something called floor bar, and floor bar was very similar to Pilates, and I saw it being advertised. And bear in mind, back in the day, there was no Facebook or anything.
Yes, I recall.
I saw a course being advertised, and it couldn't have been online. It must have been through a pamphlet, through a guy who was also a former dancer called Michael King. And I thought, I'll sign up for that course. And that was my starting of everything, my starting of going to work in professional football and rugby. And it really stemmed from there.
Wait, professional football, rugby, what were you doing? Were you training athletes?
For over 15 years, and I've just made a return now, Dan, because I had a break during COVID, like many other people. I used to go into the rugby and the football training grounds, and I'd do small group and large group programming, including Pilates and yoga, and also Pilates one-to-one, using the apparatus for the boys. So the boys would never come to me to get fit, but they would come for what's called prehabilitation and rehabilitation. So if
the professional athletes?
Yes. And I was called into the clubs as a freelancer, and that's what I'm doing presently at the moment. I've just made
So I remember back in the 70s, there's American football, right? Which is really football, but it's we do it our own way. Everything our own way here in the U.S. There was a guy named Lynn Swan. He was a great athlete and a great player for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he started taking ballet, right, to become more graceful and to get better balance and strength. And everybody laughed at him for the first year. And by the second year, when he became the best wide receiver in the league, everybody started taking ballet.
Yeah, I bet.
Was it something like that with you guys too? I mean, because Pilates is amazing for stretching and balancing and your internal strength and your core strength. I can imagine must be huge for them.
It was, but I think as well, Dan, because I came from a dance and a ballet background, it was a natural process to go from dance into Pilates. And I'm
talking about convincing the athletes that it was okay.
Oh, yes. Yeah, but I think though the athletes have been doing it for years, particularly in rugby league and rugby union. Rugby league and rugby union have been looking at therapies like that long before the football, and particularly in the UK, because we have so many Australian and New Zealand physios who come over here with different ideas. And my first team I worked for was Saints, which is St Helens Rugby League, in my local area, and that was the coach then was a guy called Nigel Ashley Jones, who came over from Australia. So of course Australia has been doing Pilates for years. It's been part of their system, so they never saw it as woo-woo or sissy or feminine. They just got on with it and did it.
I mean, that's the problem when you're dealing with guys. They're all pigs, and and they're very stuck in their ways, and it's hard to get them to understand things a lot of the time. Although once Lynn Swan started doing ballet in 1975, I asked my mom if I could go take a ballet class. She wouldn't let me, but that's a whole other story.
Well, there's something called marginal gains now, Dan. So I think people are changing, particularly in the sports and athletics structure. So if you're an athlete or a professional soccer player or rugby player or golfer or cyclist, you want to get ahead. And if you can get ahead by a marginal gain, and that can be 0.13%, in so many different areas, in your sleep, in your hydration, in your flexibility, in your core stability. A lot of athletes now are willing to try lots of different things in order to prolong their career.
Well, yeah, and I'll tell you what, that's one of the places that this new world that we live in, this data information world, is better than before. Because look, when we were growing up in the 70s and 80s, we didn't know anything. You didn't know anything. You know what your people in your block told you, what your parents told you. You didn't understand all the benefits. Now, I mean, every 3-year-old knows when a guy in Ethiopia coughs, and knows what medical systems they're using in Nairobi. And it's kind of become much more for people to understand there's different ways of living your life. We have access to this different data and information that we didn't have back then. And that's, I think, when you see an experience, you relate to it, it's much easier to accept it, I believe.
Yes. The only thing, Dan, I would say now, I feel that people are so stimulated by devices and external messages. They have less ability to do what's called critical thinking. So I had better ability back then, because back then you would feel. Remember, emotion is energy in motion. So we would feel intuitively what the body wanted and what the body needed. Now you really have to go and search out that information, because now everybody's telling us what to think instead of how to think. And how to think is very important. And critical thinking is the essence. So the quality of your life is always based on the quality of the questions you ask.
Yeah, but look, I mean, for these kids today, the data overload they have it's terrible. I mean, I look at my own kids who start, and I was a terrible parent, of course, like all of us, but they'll tell me about that in 10 years when they're on the psychiatrist couch about how horrible I was. But, we got them devices early because all their friends had them when they were 7, 8, 9 years old. So when those like I said, those neural pathways are developing and they're just being bombarded by all these signals, it does become very difficult for them to make decisions. And but look, let's get back to what you're doing and why it makes it all easier. So you're doing Pilates, obviously, you're doing yoga and dancing.
Yes.
You sound very spiritual, Nisha.
I am very spiritual because, I'm not religious. So somebody said to me a profound quote the other day, Dan: God helps those who help themselves. I'm going to say that again. God helps those who help themselves. So I don't believe in it. Well, I believe in what's called Great Spirit, and that comes from Native American Indians. So I believe that we have a Great Spirit. And, if some people choose to call it God, Jehovah, Allah, that's up to them. But I believe in that quote. We have to help ourselves first before expecting other people or other things to help us. So we need to become strong physically and mentally, emotionally, spiritually in our bodies and minds.
So how did you, if it wasn't religion, if you're not a religious person, by the way, I'm not very religious either, but how did you develop your spirituality? Where did that all come from?
Well, spirituality for me, usually, when I'm dealing with people, when you have a shock in life or you have some sort of trauma or something which happens or goes wrong, it usually makes you question what is the meaning of life. So in Buddhist philosophy, we believe that suffering is meant for those people who want to climb higher up the chakra system. So when I was young in my 20s, I sadly lost my brother, and that was a real awakening. So everything happens for me, Dan. Nothing happens to me. So it made me question everything about everything I've ever been told. And from that, I went on a deep quest for searching out different mentors, different healers, different people who were doing things. And I was in a very, very young and type A exercise and from a fitness background. And I discovered a chap called Paul Chek, who was lecturing in and around the world, who was teaching what's called holistic health. And he was looking at the connection of the mind and body. And he too had lost a brother as well. So I felt a deep connection from him. And really, my suffering of losing my brother has made me the most amazing lady I am today, because I have the ability to, give and receive.
That's awesome. And so when you were on this quest, after you tragically lost your brother, what did you look at? What things, what were you searching for? What did you find? And how did it all lead you to the to this Paul Chek person?
Well, I looked at people's behavior. So people come from a place of reaction rather than reflection. I looked at the mind and body connection. So, your body is always speaking to us at an emotional level. So the body is an amazing feedback. It's like a magnet. So everything which is going on in the outside world, or your view, your personality, is a reflection of your inner reality. So I really saw of how our body handles everything on what's going on the outside, and how our mind controls what we do. So if we want to change what we do, we have to change our mindset. So an angry person will always have an angry body. A depressed person will always have a depressed body. If we're a happy person will have a happy body. A sad person will have a sad body. So our perception is based on our inner reality.
Nisha, I think I'm going to hire you to talk to me 20 minutes a day. That's it. I'm just going to have you call me up and just talk, and I'm going to feel great the rest of the day. I mean, that's such a beautiful way to look at life. I mean, it's fantastic.
Well, it's the way to look at life, Dan, in the way that you can heal yourself. And when you heal yourself, you realize actually you're not suffering, because again, everything happens for me, nothing happens to me. And I'm not telling people to bury emotions under the carpet, Dan, because I have a lot of people who come to me with serious disease, illness, trauma from all sorts of abuse. But what I'm saying is, let's look at what's happened. Let's look at where we can take it, and what can you do from that work. Because I'm going to give you another quote, Dan. The only time you have to doubt yourself in your life is when you're not doing the work. So depression's living in the past, anxiety's living in the future, and we want to be in the present moment, but we want to prepare. So if we're doing the inner work, and I call the inner work looking after my body by moving each day, drinking clean water each day, having good, vital nutrition each day, listening to good podcasts and doing mindset and breath work each day. If I'm doing all of those, I have a better perspective on my life, and I don't suffer the way other people suffer.
So when I was looking at your profile, I just figured you were some yoga teacher. And you clearly gone way beyond that. Why don't you tell me like all the different things that you're doing now? Because you clearly have a lot of different disciplines going on in your teachings and what you're working on with people. So give me the roadmap.
Okay, so Dan, I have 2 Pilates studios. Although they're called Pilates studios, we mainly work on rehabilitation and performance. So performance would mainly be professional athletes, and at the moment it's professional Premiership footballers. And the rehabilitation would be people right from their early 20s to the 30s who have got some sort of spine condition, people going into the 40s, 50s and 60s who have perhaps got a shoulder problem. I've got people with fibromyalgia. I've got a gentleman with a quadruple heart bypass. It's a myriad of things where I help people to connect the mind and the body, because we all hold the answers. So all I'm doing, I'm not healing people. I'm just coaching people to search within and give them different perspectives, on life. And my passion is doing these podcasts, writing, singing, and in my spare time, I like to do ecstatic dance and artwork. So you can see one of my artwork pictures behind here, Dan. So doing all this sort of right brain stuff helps me find my creativity.
So it's interesting. So I suffered from a horrible back problem for 15, 20 years, from my early 20s. I played a lot of sports, was a catcher in baseball. And so I had this, and I would go to different specialists. All of them said I should get surgery. All of them said I should get cut up and fuse my vertebra and put in concrete and whatever else. And then I found what I call my witch doctor, who I've had on the show. It was actually my first episode. I love this guy. And he also practiced, not exactly like you, but he practiced this type of medicine. It starts with chiropractic, but it's about the whole system. He talks about the entire system, how I would come in and say, hey, doc, my shoulder hurts. He'd say, okay, let's start lips. Right? Because your entire body works as one system, and an imbalance in one place sometimes causes a consequence somewhere else. And after 6 months of treating with this man, after suffering literally 20 years of horrible back pains, I was fixed. He's given me some exercises that I've done for this past 10 years. I still don't ever have back problems. And I'm always amazed by people like you who don't necessarily follow Western medicine to the T. And you bring in different types of disciplines, whether it's body, mind, system, whatever it is. And it's like here in the West, and you're obviously from the West, right? The Western world, right? We're so focused on the last 300 years and everything that's still happened. When you look at, like you were saying, Chinese and Indian societies who have been around for 5,000 years and have these amazing programs and systems they've set up that's good for not only the body, the mind, and you put them all together, how it becomes so much more powerful for people, not just in the way they feel, but like you said, the way they think and the way they make decisions and everything else. And I'm so inspired by people like you who manage to put the different pieces together and say, you know what? Everything they're telling you in the textbook might be right, but let me show you a different way that we can kind of get there. I think it's great.
Yeah, it's great, Dan, but we have to also, the genes load the gun, the environment pulls the trigger. So what I find is the environment in which people are in is crucial. So if you're brought up when your mum's an alcoholic, your father's a drug dealer, it's very difficult for those people to find a path out. However, there's always a way. And sometimes those people have got to change their peer group. Now, the body's always talking to us at a cellular level. So that's what has said to you, Dan, some people, I can't help everybody, some people will never heal. They'll always be in pain because without having purpose, we need to have purpose in life. Our purpose is our North Star. So when you have a big enough goal, dream, and legacy, you are likely to heal. So you never focus on the pain, you focus on the goal, dream, and legacy. And when you take your power into something else, the body starts to heal naturally. And I'm not saying get rid of medicine. Medicine helps people every day, but it's meant for short-term gains, not long-term fixes. And we really, truly hold the power within us.
So what kind of training and education did you go through? I mean, I'm assuming it's a very wide range.
Well, I'm a fully comprehensive Pilates teacher, which means I'm certified contemporary on all the Pilates apparatus. I hold all my dance qualifications. I'm a 1,000-hour yoga teacher certified. I'm gyrotonic gyrokinesis. I'm also done so many things. I've done 10 years of cadaver with people like Julian Baker and Professor Kerry Davis. I've looked at sports massage. I've done manual therapy in Chinese medicine and Thai yoga massage in Chiang Mai. I've done so many things, and my biggest person I've studied with is Paul Chek. You know, he's my biggest contributor, and I'm now doing coaching and a lot of mindset stuff, and doing a lot of coaching work with a guy called Paul Mort, who's Britain's answer to Tony Robbins here in the UK. Okay,
got it. So what's your sweet spot? Who are the people who are going to most benefit by contacting you? And besides me, because I'm calling you every day for my 20-minute, inspirational dialogue, but besides me.
Well, anybody really, Dan, who wants to better themselves. So if you want to better yourself and not be, I say to people, where do you want to be? If we're having this conversation in 1 year's time, 5 years' time, do you still want to be in the same job? Do you still want to be in the same relationship? Do you still want the same amount of money in your bank balance? Do you still want to be riddled with disease? If you want to better yourself, you can get one of my free books. I've got a free book, Dan, which I offer to all the podcast listeners, which is called Transformation with Nisha. I've also written over 500 blogs. There's so much information out there through ebooks, through libraries, through podcasts, but people who want me can, book me, anywhere from around the world and through my studios, but they've got to meet me 50% of the way. So when people come to me, I say, do you want me to fix them? So I don't fix anybody. It's an adult to adult relationship. It's not a parent child. So when we go to the doctor, that's the parent child relationship. When you're coming to me, you've got to step up, you've got to do the work, and you've got to be prepared to make change, to see change.
Do you ever get depressed, Nisha?
I don't get depressed because that's how my brother died. So, there is no bad day. I've already had that bad day. The bad day was when my brother, unfortunately took his own life. And from that, the most amazing gift he gave me, because it happened to make me the most amazing person. I never sat feeling sorry for myself. And that drive has made me the amazing person I am today.
It's amazing. But let me ask you a question. And I'm just so interested. Nisha, because look, I'm joking about it a little bit, but you are such an amazing, happy and positive, inspirational person. And I love listening to you talk. But like a day goes bad, you get a flat tire, something doesn't work out.
Yes.
How do you walk me through the process that you do inside your own head?
So I'll give you an example, Dan. So we all have a choice. So everything's based on our perception or reaction. So if I'm doing the work and if I'm doing the inner work, when stress does come, I don't have the same overreaction. So my mother died about 7 months ago and she had a brain hemorrhage and she really suffered with her health, and she suffered with her health right from when my brother died. So she really, took it on herself, losing a child. But when my mother died and she had that brain hemorrhage, I was so lucky because she was a strong woman like me. She had 10 days at the end of life. Every day I got up, I got a cold shower, I did some breath work, I did some meditation, I did some movement. Only on 3 days I chose not to teach. The rest of the days I chose to teach 1 or 2 hours. Then I went and sat by her side in hospital late at night because there's no point me losing my health. And again, my mother was elderly. She was 79. And for me, death isn't the end. So, for me, the body is gone, but the soul lives on. So it's what you want to believe. Another example, Dan, is when I was going to work last year. It took me 3 hours, 20 minutes to get to work. I wasn't very well. I was particularly tired that day, but I still show up and got there. And when I got to work and I have my own premises and I see the amazing people who've made the effort to turn up for me to coach them, my whole attitude changes. So, yes, I have bad emotions like everybody else. So let the emotions come, let the anger come, express them through movement, express them through dance, express them through art, because we're meant to show emotion. But what I'm saying, have focus and purpose, because it goes back to that saying by psychiatrist Jerry Welsh: when you've got a big enough dream, you don't have a crisis. When you're living your dream, you don't have time to be sick.
I'm ready to go run a marathon. We're going to go build a new house. Like, let's go, Nisha. That's awesome. I love listening to you talk. All right. So tell, just for those of us who are listening out there, those people, you teach Pilates, you teach yoga, and what other specific things could people be contacting you about?
Mindset, and it's holistic coaching, really, what I am. I'm a holistic coach for people to reach their potential through their bodies using the art of Pilates, and also movement, hydration, nutrition, sleep, breath work. So it's a combination, and they can do online programs. I've got, online programs that people can do all over the world. They can come to my studios, and I also offer teacher training where I take teachers out of their comfort zone and I take them to another level spiritually, mentally, and emotionally and physically, if they're prepared to do the work. Because remember, change is frightening.
Yeah, and that sounds like everybody, right? Like middle-aged people, young adults. I mean, it doesn't matter who they are. If they want to feel better about their life, they're calling Nisha, huh?
Yes.
That's awesome. Give me where do people contact you specifically, websites or social?
Very easy to find me. You can just put in Google Nisha Pilates, Yoga Anatomy, Pilates Manchester. I'm very, very active on social media. I've got so many YouTube channels. If they put any of those in, Dan, my details will come up. They can drop me a DM or message, and one of my team will send them my ebook or help them with any inquiry that they've got.
Nisha, this has been a surprising episode. I'm a teacher. I thought we were going to talk about downward dog, and child's pose. And I mean, and you're such an inspiration. First of all, I love your accent, of course.
Thank
I
you.
love how you talk. I love your positive outlook. I mean, I love talking to you. I mean, it's just such a joyful experience to talk to somebody who's just, I mean, maybe you don't know that you figured it all out, but it seems like you figured it all out. Have you? Have you figured it all out?
No, I'm still on my journey, Dan. I've still got so much to give, and that's why I want to keep my health and do the work so that I can live. Because one of my relatives is 103 in India, so I can live with a healthy body till later, and I can pass on the wisdom and continue to learn.
Well, that's awesome. And I think I'm going to have you on again. Look, like I said, I'm calling you every day for my 20-minute, dialogue, but I'd love to have you on again and continue talking, because this is such an inspirational half hour. This is just awesome. I really like talking to you. So thank you for coming on. I appreciate your time. If you guys are out there looking, Google Nisha Pilates, And check out middleagedmess.com. Give me a like, give me a subscribe. We'll see you next time. Thanks so much for coming out.